Hello, it's Bob Pandolfo. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm going to do a short video on the sulkies in harness racing. You may have heard that recently the Meadowlands, and this started last weekend, March 31st, 2023. The Meadowlands decided they want to see if they can get the drivers to sit up straight instead of leaning far back. And I guess they said they're going to fine them if they don't. Some of the drivers followed the new rule on Friday and Saturday. Some didn't, but we'll see what happens. But I noticed from a lot of the remarks I saw on social media that a lot of people really don't really understand some of the new rules. First of all, one of the rules too is they don't want the drivers to give tucks in the first turn. And, that's been in place for a couple of years, really. I mean, they've been trying to implement that. So I don't really want to get into that right now. I'll do that maybe in another video. But I just want to talk about the sulkies. All right. So let's just try to explain why they would want the drivers to sit up straight. Now, let's just look at an old sulky here. This is the original wood sulky, or one of, not the original, but the one that was popular for decades. And this is Brett Hanover with Frank Urban. And you can see that the driver is sitting very close to the horse. You can actually touch the horse. And his feet are like right here, right behind the horse. I mean, the reins, it's a very short rein, as you can see. Now we have the modern day sulky. This is the UFO. I don't even know if that many drivers are using the UFO now, but the bikes are all similar to this, where the driver sits far behind the horse. What they did is they put the seat, they made the bikes longer, and they put the seat far behind. So as you can see now, that instead of this amount of distance between the driver's back and the back of the horse, there's this huge difference. And some of the drivers, by the way, this is Trace Tetrick, but some of the drivers, or Trace Tetrick, but some of the drivers lean back even more than this. They lean like totally flat back. And here you can see that his feet are like here. So look at the distance just from his feet to the horse, whereas here the feet are actually, even with the back of the horse. So what happens is that when you have these horses lined up, let's just say it's an 8-horse field on a half-mile track, the horse that's in the back, that's sitting 8th, is much further back. And in fact, there's an article I just posted on Facebook that Jay Bergman wrote for DFR Harness Racing back in 2012, where Jimmy Morrell said, well, years ago we were like 8 lanes back, and now we're like 12 lanes back. Meaning the horse in the back. Jimmy Morrell, outstanding harness driver. So this is something that writers and other people in the sport, and even trainer Brett Pelling, have talked about for years now, which is the fact that when you put the driver all the way back here, which we did by modernizing these sulkies, then you create a longer distance to the back of the field, which is the reason why, or one of the main reasons why, you don't see that many closers winning anymore. I just went over some results from last week, which I'll go over later, from last Sunday. Now, so I mean, I just want to make this perfectly clear. This is not my opinion that this makes it harder for closers to win. This is a mathematical fact. And a lot of these races, especially against the better horses, the horses in the back, like the horses that are sitting 9th and 10th, say at the Meadowlands, or sitting 7th and 8th at Yonkers and tracks like that, they literally have no chance of winning. I mean, from a mathematical standpoint, in most of the races. I mean, you get races where there are breakers or something strange happens, or there's like a suicidal pace where they might have a chance. But in a normal race run at a quick pace to an average pace, the horse is sitting 6th, 7th, and 8th and a half, or 8th, 9th, and 10th on a 1-mile track. In many cases, in fact, in most cases, they literally are mathematically eliminated from the race. They have absolutely no chance to win. So creating these longer sulkies and allowing the drivers to lean far back is like there's no nice way of putting this. This is really stupid. I mean, really unbelievably, incredibly stupid. Because in a race, if you're racing people or you're racing animals, any kind of race, you don't want to make it harder for the runners in the back to catch up, right? Because then it's boring. I mean, I just give you an example from last Sunday. 6 different tracks that raced. Out of 79 races, and I have my statistics right here. It was 67% of the races were won. Here it is, 79 races. 53 of the winners were leading at the 3/4 pole. That's 67%. And some of those horses actually, who were second by a nose, but they were on the inside. 82% of the races were won by the horse who was first or second at the 3/4 pole. In the 79 races, there were only 5 horses that came from off the pace with cover and won. Now, those of you who remember the Meadowlands in its heyday, one of the reasons why it was so exciting is because so many horses won from off the pace. Third Over was basically one of the best trips. John Campbell kind of made his home out there in Third Over. I mean, he would just sit back and get the wind behind his back and come storming up late. He was the leading driver for many years, and it was very exciting. And even if you go back to like Yonkers had a short stretch. They still have a short stretch. So the drivers would barrel 3 wide at the 3/4 down the backstretch because they had to move earlier, and you would get like a tremendous amount of action in the final quarter. Now at Yonkers, I mean, it's just basically dominated by whoever leaves. So, and I want to show you, I mean, we could, I want to mention something too, because some of the people say some things that really amaze me. Like I've heard people say, well, we created these bikes, so now we can't change them. Why? I mean, why not? Right? I mean, did you see what baseball did this year? Major League Baseball? I mean, let's get something straight here. Major League Baseball has been around a long time, and so has the NFL. These are the 2 most prosperous sports in the country. They make changes every year. And if they change something and it stinks, they correct it or they get rid of it. And look what baseball did this year in 2023. They put a clock on the pitchers, right, to make the game go faster. Because, you go to a game now, if you go to a night game, you're lucky you get home by 1 o'clock in the morning. And fans don't like that. Fans don't want 4-hour games. So now the pitchers have a certain amount of time. They have to throw the ball. I mean, I pitched in high school and summer ball. I just used to get the ball back from the catcher, look in, get the sign, and fire the ball. I mean, you don't have to stand there rubbing the ball or looking around. I mean, it's ridiculous. So that was a good change that Major League Baseball made. And another change they made is they took away the infield shift, which is boring. In the last 10, 12 years or whatever, in baseball, they were, all the infielders were standing on the right side of the field. So you'd have a left-handed batter up, he hit a ground ball, he's an automatic out. Even if he, hit one sharp, which normally would be a base hit. So Major League Baseball said, no, you got to stay in your position now. They could have just been like harness racing and said, oh, well, you can't change that. And another thing that's funny, too, people say, well, you can't change. We did change, though, right? We changed from this to this, right? And this took time because, the first change from the wood bike was Joe King's modified Sulky. But the modified Sulky was very similar to the wood bike, except for it was made of a different, material. But then, as the bikes kept getting faster and faster, they kept making the driver sit further and further back. And then the driver started leaning all the way back instead of standing up straight like this. And in North America, this is the only place in the world where they do this. Now, here, I put this picture down here. This is the great trotter FaceTime. I believe he's retired now, but this was a great trotter from France. In France, they use these bikes. I can't remember what they're called now, but this is what we should use. First of all, they're not made of steel. They're made of some sort of alloy, so they're safer. So if you get into an accident, they won't, you don't get hit in the head with, a steel pipe. Also, as you can see, in France, the drivers sit up straight, and they sit close to the horse. And throughout Europe, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere else in the world, except for the United States and Canada, the drivers sit closer to the horse and they don't lean back. I mean, we should just get, if I ran a track, I'd probably just buy a whole bunch of these bikes that they use in France and tell the drivers, look, this is what we're going to do from now on. Because you would have, instead of having the horse in the back, like 12, 15 lanes back, he would be 8 to 10 lanes back, and he'd be able to catch up. So you could actually have horses winning from third over again, from fourth over again. You'd have excitement. It's an entertainment, value. I mean, it's a sport is entertainment, right? And in harness racing, there's two forms of entertainment. One is the actual action on the track, which you want to make as exciting as possible, and the other is the betting. And these bikes and the way the drivers sit too also contribute to the short prices, because nobody bets the outside horses anymore because they know they're not going to win. So all the money gets bet on inside horses. So a horse that would, years ago would go off at, 8-5 now goes off at 4-5 because he's got post one and, he's inside. And then, a horse that would have been 5-1 years ago from post 8 is now 25-1, at a half-mile track. So, I mean, this was just, we allowed this to happen. It was the height of stupidity. It's the exact opposite of what you would want in any kind of a race. And yeah, we could change it. Yes, we can change it. So what the Meadowlands did, now Gorell is one of the few people in the sport that seems to have an actual brain as far as the guys who run tracks. And he realizes this. I don't know what the other people are thinking. Gorell was the first one who said, hey, we can't let trainers drug their horses. Hey, for some reason, I guess it's because he's a really smart businessman and, he came from another business besides harness racing. But he realizes it. He realizes that they shouldn't be sitting like this. Unfortunately, he's still allowing these bikes. If he wanted to, he could just buy a bunch of these bikes and say, we're using these bikes. Hopefully someday someone will do that. But anyway, I just wanted to point this out because I realized from some of the comments on social media, a lot of people really don't understand it. They just think it's like these bikes are the same. No, these are not the same. They're bad for the sport. They're very, very bad for the sport. So anyway, thanks for listening. This is Pandy. Thanks.